Good evening, guys, and welcome out to Revolution. We're going to have a look at a few different things, but one of the main things we want to do is just quickly have a look at this ECM of Revelation. So this is the new Novum Testamentum Graecum Editio Critica Major. So this is the Book of Revelation. So this is a huge work. It's a huge undertaking. And let me just say from the outset, I'm not against scholarship. So some people just say, well, you're against scholarship. It's like, no, I'm all for this type of scholarship. It's great. But it's the conclusions that people come to that cause me to reject what's being said here. And so it's like people doing science. I'm not against science, but when they basically tell me that they have a presupposition that I come from an ape, that we went from goo through the zoo to you. We come from a big bang and all this type of thing. Like, that's when it becomes fanciful. And so I'm going to touch on quite a few things tonight. So we're going to look at the ECM. We're also going to look at one of, or maybe just the introduction to one of Mark Ward's videos that he's done on the dangers of KJV onlyism by Dr. Mark Ward on Sam Word's ministries. I'm going to look at a few other clips as well that I checked out today, and obviously I'm really triggered and just want to vent my spleen online. But we're going to look at a few other things as well. And I listened to a 2-hour or 1 hour and 50-minute podcast called Understanding Bible Inspiration, Manuscripts and Translations Day by Day podcast. And so I went through it, and there would, these guys were trying to be nice to King James people, but in the end, we got thrown under the bus, and they're going to do a whole program against King James Version onlyism. So I thought I'd jump in and just look at one of the things that they said there, because I mean, I know I'm known for going through entire videos, explaining things along the way. And look, I actually like doing that, but with some of the more popular people, it can be really tiring doing that, because oftentimes they're just saying things that are so ignorant. And sometimes they're just making stuff up, that they think a word means something and they just run with that. And most people never check it anyway. And so, so we're going to go through this. I thought I would go through the ECM edition first. And so thankfully, this is in high definition. And so, because I paused it on some of the open pages there, and I could see certain parts of the book, and I thought, wow, that's really interesting. And so these guys they're printing it at the moment. We'll look at, if you want to buy this, if you've got a spare, I think it's 300 or 400 euros, you can get this. I doubt I would be getting it, but like TurretinFan doesn't want to debate me on Revelation 16:5 until this comes out. I think it's coming out in September. I don't think there's really going to be anything on Revelation 16:5 that matters, especially with the type of debate that we want to do. But anyway, that sort of triggered my interest in this, and there was a few things on Twitter that triggered my interest as well. So I'm going to sort of be all over the place tonight, but I think it'll be interesting. So let's go through this. So I'm just going to unmute that first. I'll put my little live banner on. And what I might do as well, because it is a not really my regular type of stream, I'm going to throw this up in the chat. If anyone wants to join, you don't even have to have your video to join, really. You can just have like a symbol there and just be a voice. But if anyone does want to join, and like I've said earlier, like I mean to join and contribute, not just to join and just make noises in the background or coughing and just sort of you're disrupting. It's like actually adding to the conversation. We're talking about Textus Receptus issues. We're talking about the ECM. We're going to be talking about Mark Ward stuff. We're going to be talking about the Textus Receptus Academy Facebook. We're going to be looking at a book on the Westcott and Hort text that was written back in their day. And so, we're going to be going through a bunch of stuff like that. So, Hudson says, dispensationalist YouTube channel Rev Reads just dropped a video on KJV New King James Version. Okay, that'll be interesting. I don't really know dispensationalist YouTube channel Rev Reads, so maybe I can actually just look it up, because we're live and we can do whatever we want. So, and another thing I wanted to quickly look at was James White. So he's done a recent video coming against numerology, and so this is basically sort of just going through one of Jonathan Burris's videos. So I want to talk about that a little bit. And so let's look at Rev Reads. Okay. 51 minutes ago. Well, I'll just put this here so we can just have a look at what I'm looking at. Rev Reads, a response to verses King James, New King James. The New King James is still the most important Bible translation. Okay. And that goes for 16 minutes. Well, I'll keep that in the background on the burner. And if I get time, maybe I can have a quick look at that. Some of these guys, it looks like he's doing a bit of a critique, a bit like what Mark Ward did with the New King James cartoon thing. So I haven't looked at, Mark Ward showed that cartoon, and really, some of those issues are sort of what I would consider side issues. It's a bit like, if you were to look at everything that Adolf Hitler did in the Nazi rule, if you were to look at, say, like just to focus someone on, what they did in North Africa, it's sort of like, oh, okay, why are you going there? Why not talk about Czechoslovakia and Norway and all these other places? It's like, why North Africa? And what I find sometimes with people talking about the New King James Version, they talk about things that aren't really hugely important and are just sort of like, the translation of demons or devils to demons. It's like, it's really bad. And it's like, most people don't think that that's bad, And so, sometimes I find, like, say, Gail Riplinger's list of differences between the New King James and the Old King James. I used to have a pamphlet with it, and so I'd go through it all, and I was just sort of like, I don't really think that it's that bad, But anyway, that'll be something to check out and look at. If I get time, I might even jump on there, but I'm not sure if I will. So let's go through this ECM material. So Hudson's saying I haven't watched it yet, but I'll watch it later. Yeah, cool. Thanks for that heads up. So we might jump straight into this.
Here's a sneak peek, and it's the newly published ECM Revelation. It comes in 4 volumes. There's a text volume with the newly reconstructed text of Revelation. There's a volume.
So what I'll do, I'll go through the whole video, and then where there are important bits, I might just rewind it and just pause it a little bit.
Of supplementary material. which tells you about the Greek manuscripts, patristic sources, and the versions that were used in the creation of the edition. And there are 2 volumes of essays. One is about studies on the text, and the other one is studies on punctuation and the textual structure of Revelation. The ECM Revelation was edited by Martin Carr, Darius Mueller, Marcus Sigismund, and Wuppertal. They collaborated with us at the INTF in Münster with Holger Struttwolf, the director, Annette Hufemeyer, and myself. And Wuppertal used a lot of our digital tools like the NTVMR to view and transcribe manuscripts, and they use the CBGM too. And you can read about that in the edition here. Now, probably what you're dying to know is how many changes there are in this Greek text of Revelation. You can read about that here. There's 84 new initial readings. That means there's 84 places that differ from the text of Revelation in the Nesselan 28.
84 different readings.
And there's 106 split lines. That means at these split lines, there's at least 2 variants the editors deem as having equal value.
So split lines, choose your own adventure Bibles.
As the initial text. Instead of making a decision one way or another, they decided to leave the decision open. And here's the list of new initial readings. And here's a list of split guiding lines. And there's also a long list, about 95 readings where there's new initial orthography. So taking a look at the text here, it looks just like all the other ECM volumes. You've got the guiding line here. You've got the variant spectrum. You've got large apparatus. And at the bottom of the page, you have something new. You've got the apparatus about punctuation in manuscripts. And each of these little abbreviations has a corresponding entry in the introduction. You can read about what that means. And then right below that, they also have information about paratext. And in the supplementary volume, you can read more about the paratext and see exactly what those numbers mean. Something else that's new in the edition is the nomina sacra. Now, for each nomen sacrum, they have, instead of an abbreviation, they put the words that are usually left out in the abbreviation or in the contraction. They have those in parentheses, so you can see those at a glance. So that's the basics of the text volume. Lots to discover there. And in the supplementary volume, we have information about the Greek manuscripts that were used in the edition. There are 110, they say, that were used in the edition. And here's the list right here of all the
Okay, 110? Is it only 110 or is that an additional 110?
manuscripts used. And there's some other information that's wasn't in other ECM volumes. For example, there's lists of singular readings, which is very helpful if you happen to be writing a dissertation on scribal habits. And there's information about the patristics, information about orthography, and lots of information about the versions that were used in the edition. There's also the helpful commentary for the versions. In the apparatus, sometimes there's a little symbol next to a version that tells you can look in this textual commentary to find out more about it. So it just adds to the precision of the apparatus. And in the studies on the text, and that's where you have the textual commentary on the Greek text. Now this one's a lot longer than the ones in the other ECM volumes. This particular one's 175 pages long. I think that's the longest essay in all these volumes, but it's packed full of information. So really thorough here. You can read all about the textual changes and the split guiding lines and other interesting things. And on the studies on punctuation and textual structure, you'll find also a long essay on punctuation. There's a German version, and then there's the English one that was translated by the one and only Juan Hernandez Jr. And it's really good. This one's also over 100 pages long. And if you're interested in punctuation, well, this is probably the best place to turn for that. Orthography in the edition itself, there's 95 changes in orthography compared to the Nestle Island, and lots of different punctuation. Now, those won't be carried out in the Nislealin 29th edition. But a big congratulations to the editors in Wuppertal. And yeah, look forward to hearing what users have to say about it. That's all for now.
Okay. So we'll go through this. That was a pretty good explanation of what that is. And so we just want to go through and check some of these things.
Here's a sneak peek at the newly published ECM Revelation. Comes in 4 volumes. There's a text volume with the newly reconstructed text of Revelation.
So newly reconstructed text of Revelation. So this is part of what the critical text is all about, is reconstructing a text, where we believe that when the technology of printing came along, the putting manuscripts into a printed form, it started to happen with Aldus Manutius, and then we saw the Complutensian Polyglot and Erasmus. He did 5 editions, and there was many smaller editions that occurred, less popular editions, but we saw Collinnaeus and the Wolf translation of 1524, and then we saw the 4 editions of Stephanus, 5 editions of Erasmus, Plantin Polyglot, that was sort of like a rehash of the Complutensian Polyglot, but we saw lots and lots of editions come in, and basically our position is that in the King James Version, it has all the representative words of the Textus Receptus. So when it came to putting the Word of God from one technology, manuscripts, into a printed form, a more stable type of form, this was finalized by the year 1611. And so the closest being Theodore Beza's 1598 edition, but the King James translators did work on their own text, and they have about 20 translatable differences between their edition, their translation, and the text of Theodore Beza. And so these guys are trying to still make the text that is their final text. And so our text has been there, it's been stable for 400 years. We can see clearly what's happened in the Reformation period with the formulation of the Textus Receptus. But these guys have a history going back to John Mill, I guess people doubting that the Textus Receptus is the Word of God. So you would have people like Griesbach, Wettstein, Ruckman, Tischendorf, Westcott and Hort, the Nestle guys. And so basically the Nestle alarm text, then that goes through to the Ahlens, Metzger, Carlo Martini, to what we have today in the NA 28 edition. And so this edition is much more detailed than you would find in, say, the NA 28 or the 29th when that comes out. And so people will be, so basically this is sort of like the study Bible of the NA 28. So the NA 28 has, a few little footnotes here and there, but this is sort of like if you want to get right into all the nitty gritty of which manuscript and why and all the rest of it, you go here. So this is the next level up. But I believe that it is hopelessly corrupted because despite all of the interesting things that they do, their text is still basically a Westcott and Hort style text, which is a corrupt text based upon 2 corrupted manuscripts, Vaticanus and Sinaiticus. And so it's always going to be tainted by those manuscripts. It's always going to be tainted by the poor scholarship of Westcott and Hort and people like George Van Smith, Unitarian George Van Smith, the biased scholarship of Carlo Martini, Bruce Metzger, Kurt Ahland. And so anyway, they did talk about the CBGM. There are going to be some readings in this from the CBGM. And we have seen that the CBGM came up with a reading in the NA28, which was 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 10. And most people have rejected that and go with the Tyndale House text, or basically a text that just doesn't have that silly reading in it. And that's the CBGM spitting out those type of readings. And so I don't think people have much confidence in the CBGM. It was interesting talking to Taylor DeSoto. He's working in IT, and he just sort of, I can't remember exactly what he said, but it's sort of like, look, this is like early computer games sort of technology. This is like, I just pictured like an MS-DOS sort of thing. It's like, it's not really as sophisticated as they're making out. And what was interesting too, I might even look at this video as well. There was a video that came out on the same Twitter feed, and it had Kurt Aland, and he was talking about the Bible Museum in Germany. And he kept talking about computers and, you know, like, we got the latest technology and all the rest of it, which is fantastic. But why not just have good scholars, you know, great scholars who know their stuff? At the end of the day, you know, Aland, you know, he was a liberal, you know, so was Metzger. These guys believed the text had errors in it, in the originals, you know, this type of rubbish. And so, you know, it doesn't matter if you're the Mormons and you've got computer technology, it's not going to help you much. You're actually, your computer would just have this red flashing light saying, don't put that reading in, go into Textus Receptus. And so you have to program these computers to not say that type of thing. So anyway, let's continue through.
There's a volume of supplementary material which tells you about the Greek manuscripts, patristic sources, and the versions that were used in the creation of the edition. And there are 2 volumes of essays. One is about studies on the text, and the other one is studies on punctuation and the textual structure of Revelation. ECM Revelation was edited by...
Okay, so I am in HD here.
Martin Carr, Darius Mueller, Marcus Sigismund, and Wuppertal.
So I don't know any of these. I've heard of Peter Malik, but that's the only person I know here.
They collaborated with us at the INTF in Münster with Holger Struttwolf, the director, Annette Hufemeyer, and myself. And Wuppertal used a lot of our digital tools like the NTVMR to view and transcribe manuscripts, and they used the CBGM.
Okay. 2024. Yeah, so they're looking at the Latin, the Coptic, the Syriac, the Ethiopic, the Armenian, the Georgian, lots of different things here. So it's very interesting, you know, and like I put this on my Textus Receptus Academy. It's always I'm always a bit wary of just throwing my Facebook up, because sometimes people can, you know, contact me privately with oh, Nick, pray for this, you know, and it's like, oh, I don't want everyone to see that. But so I put, you know, sneak peek of the ECM. So this is just the video that we just watched. And, you know, Grantley McDonald, he's an interesting guy. He's from Melbourne, the hometown that I was born in. And he has been working on the Communiohanium for many years against the Communiohanium. I think he must get paid by the guys in the Netherlands. It seems like he's part of that crew. So he says you should be glad that someone's doing all this work so that you can have a text that is closer to the earliest recoverable text form than what's in the Textus Receptus. And so there's a whole bunch of comments here, but I just put, we're glad someone is looking at this, but just not so glad with their conclusions, which have historically proven to be inconsistent. So, you know, it looks like there's quite a bit of fire happening here. People arguing about things, but well, I may as well look at it. Why not? So, Scriptorian Bible says, can you define earliest recoverable text to God Almighty? Is the arm of the Lord too short? Is there anything that he cannot do? Can you tell me, Robert, which manuscripts are ancient to God? Because one of the things is, like, I understand, Scriptorian Bibles is pulling Grantley McDonald over the coals here. But one of the things is they're only dealing with extant material that they have today. See, 500 years ago, Erasmus, Aldous, the Complutensian polyglot guys, Beza, Stephanus, and all of those guys in the Reformation had access to things that we don't even know about. We read about manuscript names, and we hope that what we've got today matches up. And some people just squeeze it in and go, "Yeah, we're sure that's it." And half the time they have to create all these stories around it to why there's so many differences. And so you're dealing with fragmentary evidence. You don't have all the evidence that they had back in their day. So God perfectly timed it. So Erasmus and Stephanus and these other guys would have access to things that were way older than 500 years is a long time. Things can get lost in history. And there's a really interesting movie. Now, I quickly watched this movie today. Okay. So I'll just get this up. It's called The Name of the Rose. Okay. Now, it's an old movie, and it was sort of free on YouTube. So I watched it on YouTube. But I think they cut out a lot of the boring bits, and the boring bits were when they were looking at manuscripts and in a library, and this library ended up burning down and all the rest of it. But interesting flick. Now I might just get some images here. Yes, The Name of the Rose. Okay, looks like they've got a bit of a series on that, but it has Sean Connery, who's obviously legendary actor. But yeah, The Name of the Rose. Basically, it's a story about these two guys who go into a monastery type of situation, and there's a bunch of murders, so it's suspense. But there is this theme of all a hidden library filled with books, old books, but then it burns down. And when you're watching this, it's like, this is what's happened in history. And a lot of people try and come against me and deny it. One of the quotations of Dan Wallace is, there have been 1 million biblical documents that have disappeared in World War II alone, or been destroyed in World War II alone. And so, that is huge. I don't know how people can get around that. Unless they're just going to prove Dan Wallace wrong. And that's what I hear people saying, like, oh, we've got to check with Dan Wallace, we're going to make sure that's true. And it's like, well, one of your main gurus on your side is making this claim. I'm just quoting him. And so that's not, if it's proven wrong, well, your guru's wrong, sort of thing. But so very interesting. Apparently it's based on a book. So yeah, the whole concept, maybe I should type in The Name of the Rose library. And so, yeah, it was like a labyrinth. It was sort of like a hidden library. But this is the type of thing, they're just in rooms filled with old books, forbidden books, and all the rest of it. And so, anyway, I just sort of throw that up there. But that was an interesting watch. Probably you might want to watch it somewhere else than YouTube, because I watched it on YouTube and then I thought, well, that wasn't really. Yeah, I felt like there was like half an hour missing somewhere. So I went back through and just looked at a few other clips and pieced it together, and sort of, the scenes where they're gathering a lot of books and there's a big fire that was sort of cut out. I guess people see that as boring, but you and I see that as really fascinating. And so anyway, I'll shut that one down. Okay, so it looks like they're having just a bit of a bit of an argument. So I probably won't go through all that, because sometimes it can just be, dumpster fire sort of stuff. And it's like you read through it and there's really no substance. It's just someone is, and what I find is, like say Grantley McDonald, like he's a smart guy. Obviously he's critical text. He is not a Christian. He's openly an atheist, and says, Christianity is dangerous and extreme and probably a bit like Islam. But yeah, at the end of the day, he knows a lot. And so if you're going to argue with him, it's good to argue from a place of knowledge, because just going, you're an idiot, it doesn't really solve that much. And what you're better off doing is going, okay, well, what about this? What about, like, making educated argumentation? So you're either going to get him thinking about these things, or he's going to answer in a certain way that you'll go, yeah, I didn't think of that before. That's a really interesting point. And you'll sharpen your pencil a little bit. So anyway, I'm a bit over the whole, just sort of seeing someone online and going, you suck, you're an idiot, you're a moron. It's like, yeah, okay. So where are we going with that conversation? And then there's just 50 replies. No, you're a moron. No, you're a moron. No, you're. And it's sort of like, sometimes if you're, arguing with a fool from a distance, people can't tell who the fool is. You know what I mean? And so I can't say that I'm completely innocent on that. Some people get you stirred up, but some people from the beginning of a conversation just go, hey, moron face, this and that. And it's like, okay, where do you expect that to end up? You know what I mean? Like, and so anyway, but I can't help that. Anyone can join the Textus Receptus Academy, whether you're an atheist, whether you're, King James onlyist, whether you're a TR guy, anyone can. So I'll go through some of these comments. Probably not the comments, but we'll just chat a little bit about stuff. So some people have just been throwing stuff up lately. Now that seems relevant, but some people have just been throwing stuff up that's not really relevant. Like, what do you think's wrong with the church today? It's like, which church? Why? We're talking specifically about Textus Receptus, King James, Bible translation stuff. And so Peter Van Cleek, he has a new article, No Middle Ground Between Theologically and Anthropologically Sourced Bibliology. Very interesting. I'd love to get Peter Van Cleek on the program. Now, if you are wondering what I've got coming up, I have Alan Stewart. He's coming on the program on the weekend. And so that should be Saturday about 5 o'clock New York time. Now, I'm saying New York time because so many people have different times. And so it's like, I'm just going to stick with New York time. So if you're an American, you don't know what time it is in your state or whatever, just Google it. What time is it in New York? And you can do the math from your end. I'm 16 hours different. So it's really hard for me to go through and try and work out where your state is, has some sort of time zone or whatever. It's quite frustrating. So yeah, just saying New York time, that way everyone can sort of be on the same page. And yeah, so we've got Jonathan Sheffield. So he's going to do his, we had to reschedule his rescheduled interview. He's going to be on the 22nd. So that same weekend, I might even have Bryan Ross coming on. So Brian's contacted me recently and said, yeah, I'd love to do something. And so I will have to cramp in his new book. So I'm probably going to, he's given me the PDF there. So I'll probably convert that to audio somehow. And I find it easier to put things in audio. If it's in text on computer, I can still go through and read it. I just don't usually have the time to sit down and do it. And usually when I am sitting down, I prefer to make a video. That's just the way my life is at the moment. If I had all the time in the world, I'd probably do both and all the rest of it. But yeah, usually on the run, I can listen to stuff in audio, and I can go over it and over and over it many, many times, where I find if I'm sitting down, I don't really have that pleasure. So yeah, I might throw that link. Actually, I'll just throw this link in, and you can go there yourself and check that out. And so A. Hanna is, he's been inspired by a lot of Taylor's material, Taylor de Soto. So he's going through a lot of the authorized material with Mark Ward's stuff in it. So it's very interesting, and it's great to go through. So we've got a few comments there. Anyway. Yeah, I think it's Glenn Newman just keeps putting stuff on there, getting a lot of comments, but yeah, what does your local church produce? It's like, people like disciple, what would you answer to that? Just, yeah, it's generating conversation, but it's not really talking about the issues that the whole site's set up. So I'm probably going to go through and delete a lot of this type of chat, even though it generates a lot of traffic. Now I've got the ability to look on my admin tools at the growth of my channel. So let's go in the last, we'll go in the last year. So what is it? May, oh, it only goes for a year. Yeah. Update that. Whoops. We're going to here, update. Okay. I don't know if that's worked. June, October, January. Yeah, that looks like a year. So, I mean, the page is growing. We've got like 3,600 members now. It was only a couple of years ago I was saying there's 2,000. It's probably like 1 year ago, actually. So I got rid of all the community chats. There were a whole bunch of community chats. Someone started throwing some porn stuff on there. So I kept deleting it, but it kept turning up. And so people were complaining to me about it. So I'll just shut the group down because there wasn't really much happening there. If it wasn't getting that type of spammy stuff, it would be fine. We get enough spam just on the front page of this group anyway. I probably get like 2 or 3 a day of, saying Justin Bieber's dead or Mike Tyson has died. And, and so I just have to go through and delete them and block the users. It's just Facebook doesn't seem to have, they can find out if you've said something against, a woke group somewhere, and you'll get a 30-day ban, but they don't have the ability to see these, these ones that have Mike Tyson in it or Justin Bieber in it that just have been around for like 5 years, and they just keep coming up with the same stuff. They don't have the ability to look at that and go, oh, it's spam, So anyway, I'll go back to the TR Academy. So yeah, so that's what's happening in the TR Academy. Lots of people chatting away. Not much to talk about there. So that was the sacred text. So I'll shut those two down. Actually, maybe I should put on the TR Academy. I don't think I actually advertise this one on Facebook. So because I'm sort of, freelancing here, there's not really it's not really a topic yet. It's just bits and pieces here and there. I'm going to throw that in the mix. Get a few more people on board. Textus Receptus. And that's good. I'll throw it in the Textus Receptus Academy. And the Textus Receptus Academy debate group as well. So that'll keep everyone happy there. Yeah, so the title of this is, a new revelation. And so obviously meaning, there is a new book of Revelation coming out. If they've made 90 changes, I mean, that's significant. I mean, the difference between Theodore Beza's 1598 and the King James is about 20 translatable changes. So these guys have 90 just in the book of Revelation, to give you an example of how much it's changed. And James White will claim that the King James has to be back translated from English to make Scrivener's text and all this stuff. And, this has, 3.5 times more changes than the differences between Beza and the King James, just from the book of Revelation. And so it's quite amazing. Anyway, I'll shut my Facebook down and let's keep going through this video.
M2, and you can read about that in the edition here.
Okay, so I do want to, he is going through the pages. I do want to just sort of,
DBGM2, and you can read about.
Okay, so a lot of it's in German, and then they have the English translation on the other side. Sometimes they don't have the English translation. So anyway,
that and the edition.
Yeah, it looks like that's all in German. Sometimes they have it all in German, and then they'll, 50 pages in, they'll have the same thing in English. That's what they do with the NA28 anyway.
Now, probably what you're dying to know is how many changes there are in this.
Okay, yeah, we got into the English part of the text, so we'll just go back a little bit.
Now, probably what you're dying to know is how many changes there are.
Okay, yeah, so this is the introduction. This is where the English starts. The goals of the edition, it'll tell you all that. So it's very, very fascinating because, I'm going through a study in Revelation at the moment, and there's a lot of places in Revelation that are contested with the majority text and with the critical text as well. And it's one of those places where there's a lot of anecdotes about Erasmus and, back translating into Latin. And, Franz Delitzsch found a manuscript and he's saying that that's the one Erasmus used. And there's a lot of anecdotes. I've written a book on Revelation 16:5. And so I've always been looking at the triadic declarations, the past, present, and future of the one who is and was and is to come type of thing, looking at those verses and where people say there is variance. And yeah, so I'm fascinated in what people have to say, and a lot of the time it's also a fascination in finding out what errors people have to say, because that's going to trickle down. It's like the trickle down economics sort of thing. Well, this trickles down right down to the average apologist on YouTube, and they're going to be saying this type of thing, but in a less educated way. And so James White will be saying, well, I'm an expert, I know everything, and he'll be sprouting a lot of this type of stuff. And no doubt he'll find somewhere where they've made up a story about Erasmus slipping on a banana peel somewhere, and he'll just repeat it over for the next 5 years, and that'll be his excuse for throwing, a brilliant guy like Erasmus under the bus, or, it'll be Beza. Oh, where's his manuscript? Revelation 16:5. It doesn't exist. He's a liar, or, he's like Joe Biden, just making up these stories about these guys. And so it's it's interesting from a perspective where I look at all this data and go, wow, that's interesting. But then I look at how people process this material, and it's quite amazing to see the links that people will go to slander other people or to just make up a story. And it's funny too, when you have a brand new piece of information on the scene, you just, someone finds a manuscript that says 1 + 1 = 2, and it's like, well, there you go, and they're like, no, the person who wrote that made a mistake, and they just make up a story instantly. And it's funny, they must just rush to the front of the line. Like when it was revealed to Jan Kranz about the Ethiopic edition, he basically just said, no, it doesn't read that way. And then when it was revealed to him about Theodore Beza, saying he had an ancient manuscript, well, Beza tricked himself. He didn't really have an ancient manuscript. And it's like, well, where are you getting that information from? It's like, well, I just know it, and then that just becomes the official, these guys just set themselves up as gurus, and you can provide new information to them, but they've already got this uncanny ability to just go, well, no, Erasmus is a liar, because they hear this all the time. If you listen to James White's program, he's usually just saying stuff that's sort of 101 academy answers to people, and it's just sort of make up stuff and just make an anecdote about Erasmus and just laugh about the Reformation. They didn't really know what they were doing. They look, it's an accident of history. Everything else is the providence of God. Even child rape's the providence of God and all this. But the Textus Receptus, it's an accident of history. Just bumbling fools. Just it's all they had. Like sort of thing. It's quite amazing. But it's all they had, proving that they didn't have James White's text. All what these guys are pumping out.
Are in this.
Okay, so I'll just go back to that page. Sorry about that.
Now, you can read about that in the edition here. Now, probably what you're dying to know is how many changes there are.
Okay. Okay. The header of the ECM Revelation indicates the Greek colophon divisions according to the tradition of Andrew of Caesarea. So that's interesting because that's what Erasmus used. Talks about here, since the modern reception history, Revelation has been considerably influenced by the text established in the edition since Erasmus. And that's why they have to make up anecdotes that Erasmus constantly back translates from the Latin, where in his first edition, he said that he had back translated a few words. And he said, but that's going to be fixed up by the Aldine press guys, the Aldine edition. And it was fixed up. There's no problem there. And but what that does, that gives all of these guys license to go, oh, where else did he do that? Well, he did it where he admitted that he said he did it. If he was just back translating from the Latin willy-nilly, wouldn't he have just put the Comia Hennium in there? It's in the vast majority of Latin manuscripts, 95% of Latin manuscripts. Wouldn't he have just gone, well, let's just put it in from the Latin? But he didn't. And so this goes against their story that they're making up against Erasmus. So this is the problem. I don't have a problem with all the textual data. I might have a problem with how it's interpreted and how they, the voodoo of the dating of these manuscripts and the importance of Vaticanus and Sinaiticus, because Erasmus knew of Vaticanus and said it was unimportant. But, then all of a sudden they have, Erasmus has no weight whatsoever. And they just make up stories about the guy. And so, usually you have to sort of swallow all that with the information. It's sort of like, you know, they've got the medicine there, and it's like, okay, let's look at all these editions throughout the years and early church writers and all the rest of it. But then they've got this spoonful of, you know, Erasmus anecdotes that goes with that, a spoonful of, Sinaiticus is the oldest and best, and so is Vaticanus, and all the papyri, you know, they're very important, when a lot of people say, well, they haven't really changed much. And so, okay, textual witnesses. Okay, looking at lots of different things, the Koine translation, Complutensian polyglot. Okay, it's very interesting. I'm just looking at these. I'll probably look at them later and see if I can find anything important. I don't want to just bore you guys to tears.
Greek text of
Okay.
Revelation. You can read about that here.
Okay, so these are the ones where they have, what was it, 23 readings or something that have the same, the same weight.
There's 84 new
84
initial readings. That means there's 84 places that differ from the text of Revelation and the Nessalon 28. And there's 106 split lines. That means these split lines, there's at least 2 variants the editors deem as having equal value as the initial text. And instead of making a decision one way or another, they decided to leave the decision open.
Okay, so here we go. Here are the texts, the new initial readings. And so you can see them there in the Greek. Obviously, the first thing that I look for is around the Triadic Declaration, because that's where I've done probably the most of my study. And so I can't see much there. Going down to 11, 17, nothing there at all. So there's no change there. Okay, so that's the ECM reading, and that's the NA28. So that's the older type of reading. So, yeah, there's a lot of interest there. And even with the concept of the pre-trib material that I've been looking at, it's interesting to see what they're saying here. To Theoumas. Interesting. Okay, I'll go to the next page.
And here's the list of new initial readings.
Okay, so it does have Revelation 16:5, it looks like, because Dikaios, or is that 16:5? Looks like 16:6, 16:18. So no, I don't think it's 16:5. Okay, so we go through to Revelation 22. Looking at material there, nothing much has changed. And yeah, so then it looks like it's in German.
And here's a list of split guiding lines.
Okay, so these are the split guiding lines. We'll just go back to that.
New initial readings.
Okay. Revelation 1:5, 1:9, 1:14, 1:15, etc.
And here's the list of split guiding lines.
Okay. 4:8. Um, 11:17. Nothing really there. Okay, 16:5. or a on cohort in hot osios. Okay, so it's got a split reading there at Revelation 16:5, and so the difference being a definite article before osios, so the holy, which is split over just holy, and so the NA28 just it has the holy, so they're saying that can be taken out. 74, okay. $22, okay.
And there's also,
so I'm not sure what that is, but
a long list, well, 95 readings where there's new initial orthography.
New initial orthography, okay. I'll just go back a little bit. So just looking at any changes that I sort of feel is relevant. Nope. When I'm saying relevant, I mean relevant to me and the studies that I'm doing at the moment, where I can spot something and go, okay, well, that makes a difference. Sometimes things are like here, it just looks like it's just different spelling of the way things are spelt, but then again, there is quite a bit of difference in some of these, but we'll just keep moving along.
95 readings where there's new initial orthography. So taking a look at the text here, it looks just like all the other ECM volumes.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, let's just keep going.
You've got the guiding line here. You've got the variant spectrum. You've got large apparatus. And at the bottom of the page, you have something new. You've got apparatus about punctuation in manuscripts. And each of these little abbreviations has a corresponding entry in the introduction. You can read about what that means. And then right below that, they also have information about paratext. And in the supplementary volume, you can read more about the paratext and see exactly what those numbers mean. Something else that's new in the edition is the nominus sacra. Now, for each nominus sacrum, they have, instead of an abbreviation, they put the words that are usually left out in the abbreviation or in the contraction. They have those in parentheses, so you can see those at a glance.
Okay, so I'll just get this page up here. Okay, just trying to find where I put it. Actually, it might be next to this page. No. Anyway, I'll just keep going and I'll bring it up a little bit later. Yeah.
So that's the basics of the text volume. Lots to discover there. And in the supplementary volume, we have information about the Greek manuscripts that were used in the edition. There's 110, they say, that were used in the edition. And here's the list right here of all the manuscripts used. And there's some other information that's wasn't in other ECM volumes.
Okay. Okay, very interesting. So then we're looking at like P47 some of the readings in that. So obviously it starts at chapter 9, goes through to 16, P18, P24.
For example, there's lists of singular readings, which is very helpful if you happen to be writing.
I'll just go back.
Volumes, for example, there's lists of singular readings, which is very helpful.
So just looking here where there's anything that's relative to the studies I've been doing. Not really. 21, 22.
Helpful if you're
22.
Happen to be right. A dissertation on scribal habits, and there's information about the patristics, information about orthography, and lots of information.
Yeah, that was an interesting page.
Patristics, information about orthography.
Okay. Yeah, like Revelation 1:8. Okay, so it has kai theos in logos to pentokrator. So this, I guess these are quotations of the early church writers. So that would be very interesting to go through. Yeah, it's in Latin there. Ho'on kai ho ekomenos ho pentokrator. Yes, a very interesting material there. The 4:8 Kyrie ho theos ho pentokrator. Yeah, anyway, so interesting stuff. Okay, Revelation 1:8. So this is one of the ones that I've studied into quite a bit. Arminian edition. I am Abe and K. So I guess there's Alpha and the Or. Alpha and Omega. Interesting. It seems like it's just going through like one little phrase at a time. Okay, that's very interesting.
And lots of information about the versions that were used in the edition.
Okay, then we get a commentary on the text. And so Revelation 7. And so that's very interesting. That looks like it's talking about the Sahidic, different Sahidic readings.
There's also the helpful commentary for the versions. In the apparatus, sometimes there's a little symbol next to a version that tells you can look in this textual commentary to find out more about it. So it just adds to the precision of the apparatus. And in the studies on the text, and that's where you have the textual commentary on the Greek text. Now, this one's a lot longer than the ones in the other ECM volumes. This particular one's 175 pages long. I think that's the longest essay in all these volumes, but it's packed full of information.
Okay, so that's mostly in German there.
So really thorough here. You can read all about the textual.
Okay, because this is where it's interesting, where you have, some of the reasons why people have chosen, certain readings over others. And sometimes it can just be one manuscript. Like I know in Revelation chapter 5, I'm pretty sure it's verse 9, where they have the us reading, and there's only one manuscript with that reading, and it's Codex Alexandrinus, but they go with it in the critical text, and so going against the TR, going against the majority, and everything. But there's Codex Alexandrinus; they just go with that, and I mean, the whole concept of we or us. I mean, in the Greek, it's so similar. It's phonetically almost the same. And so, but they go with that reading. It's just, it boggles the mind. But maybe, they explain it. But this is all in German here. Let's continue.
Changes and the split guiding lines.
And so one of the things, too, you can do, if you, on your phone, if you have Google Lens. Now, if you download Google Lens, if you were looking at a German document like this, so it's pretty hard for me to show. Well, actually, what I might be able to do is take a photo of it, and then I'll show you what I would be doing with this. So go Google Lens, I go to translate, and then I hold it up here. Translate into English, and I'll go big screen, and it takes a picture of it and it instantly translates everything over. And so I guess some of the text it wouldn't. Some of the names might be quite strange, and it probably wouldn't muddle it up. But you can, if you really had to, you could just sort of go through and just get the basic gist of what it's saying, and then just look at the numbers. And and the good thing is with German, like if they're saying Complutensian polyglot, usually it's like Complu text or something. You sort of get the gist.
And other interesting things. And on the studies on punctuation and textual structure, you'll find also a long essay on punctuation. There's a German version, and then there's the English one that was translated by the one and only Juan Hernandez Jr. And it's really good. This one's also over 100 pages long. And if you're interested in punctuation, well, this is probably the best place to turn for that. Orthography in the edition itself, there's 95 changes in orthography compared to the Nestle Aland, and lots of different punctuation. Now, those won't be carried out in the Nestle Aland 29th edition, but a big congratulations to the editors in Wuppertal, and look forward to hearing what users have to say about it. That's all for now.
Okay. So, this was the video that was brought out about Kurt Aland. Now, I've just got to check and see if this is copyrighted. Might just go from NTF there. It doesn't say it's copyrighted. But anyway, I don't really want to show too much of it, but maybe I just sort of wanted to talk about how he is saying, it's all to do with computers and everything like that.
Bis hinein ins 17. Jahrhundert. Die griechische Seite hier.
Okay, so they've got a Greek side, then they've got a Latin side, which they mostly ignore. Ethiopic. German Bibles before Luther, which they also ignore. I believe it's based on an inferior text, the Textus Receptus. But I'm looking for where he's talking about computers. But anyway, I'll put that into the link there. So if anyone wants to watch that, they can. Now I'll shut that down. And so let's have a look at what Mark Ward said. It's so weird. The beginning of this video is just like, it's like their little soundbite. Listen to this.
I have come to feel that King James onlyism, however, is a cancer. And there is nothing, in my experience, like the discord among true conservative Christians who believe the Bible, believe the gospel.
King James onlyism is a cancer. And, you know, he's worried because it's like, well, I've never seen anything like this type of discord. But when you look up like division, let's look up some division in the Bible, KJV. Bible verses about division. Let's have a look at that. Now I beseech you, brethren, mark those which cause divisions and offences contrary to the doctrine which ye have learned, and avoid them. And so who's causing the division here? Even Mark Ward in that video, he says basically that the King James was around until like 1970, and then the NIV sort of came on the scene. So it wasn't really a problem before that. And so who's the new kid on the block? Who's the one causing the problems? It's the NIV coming on the scene, isn't it? So it clearly says in Romans, I beseech you, brethren, mark those which cause divisions and offences contrary to the doctrine which ye have learned. Now, as much as they say, oh, no doctrines are changed, we're pointing out where there are doctrines changed. Or any half-blind person can figure that out. And it says, and avoid them. And so if you want to obey the Bible, you sort of, when we're just looking up verses on division, because he's saying we're the divisive ones. It takes two to tango here. And so look at this about division. This is the main one that I wanted to read, okay? Look at this. Now I beseech you, brethren, by the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, that ye all speak the same thing. So that would mean if you're reading along and there's, oh, that verse is deleted, then someone goes, yeah, because it's not in the older manuscripts. And the other one goes, no, but it's in my Bible. It's been in my grandpa's Bible. It's in the Textus Receptus. And someone else is like, well, I follow this other text. It's just going to cause problems. You can't speak the same things. So I beseech you, brethren, by the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, that you all speak the same thing, and that there be no divisions among you, but they be perfectly joined together in the same mind and in the same. How can you do that with all these different Bibles? Now, I'm not just saying because you do have people who would read a German Bible, a French Bible, and all the rest of it. But when it comes to English-speaking people should be in agreement that, okay, the King James is the text. Now, if you have a supplementary text, which is like a TR edition or whatever, okay, but at least it's got those verses in there. You know what I mean? If you're following the critical text, you are following something that is just a complete aberration. So at the worst, New King James, MEV, all that sort of stuff. At the worst, at the best, King James. And so, and anywhere in between, it's like, okay, but at least I can sit there with someone with the New King James and go, oh yeah, well that verse is in there. But obviously the New King James has a whole bunch of definitions, which is not good. So that's why I just recommend people go to, where is it? The one that I've worked on, KJV 2023. It's much more accurate than the New King James, and I'm always asking people to critique it, and I haven't really got that much feedback from it, which shows a lot of people, well, some people have critiqued it and they're saying they want more copies. They're enjoying it. And I see that as a supplement to the King James, not as something that usurps it. Just for those who say, oh, I can't read the King James, it's like, oh, okay, just read that then. And hopefully that'll be a bridge so you can then eventually come over to the King James position. For it has been declared to you my brethren, by them which are of Chloe's house, that there are contentions among you. If someone's got a different Bible, there's going to be contentions. One saying, I'm of Paul, blah, blah, blah. And so, but the main thing is, he's saying, that you all speak the same thing. And it talks about in Ephesians that you come to the unity of the faith. Now, when it's hot pistis, when it's got the definite article there, it's talking about the body of doctrines that a church holds, not your own personal faith. Like we're all believing God, sort of thing. No, it's that we all come to the unity of the faith, that we all believe the same things. So that's the ultimate goal, not that we all have different opinions on absolutely everything. Now, I think in a healthy church, for people to have different opinions about things is fine, okay, but not about doctrines. We should be getting closer and closer to unity in a good, healthy church. But having different opinions about many other things, that's fine. That means that people are free-thinking people. You don't want just a bunch of clones, bunch of robots who just parrot whatever the pastor's saying. You want people who examine things for themselves, look into things for themselves, and develop their own convictions, because they're the strongest Christians. Or else an atheist will just come along and you just go, oh, my pastor said so, or so-and-so said so, instead of, no, I know, because I've looked it up and I've done my own study here. Titus, we'll open this one. Titus 3:9 to 3:11. It says, but avoid foolish questions and genealogies and contentions and strivings about the law, for they are unprofitable and vain. A man that is a heretic after the first and second admonition reject, knowing that he that is such is subverted and sinneth, being condemned of himself. Now the New King James says a man that is a divisive man after the first and second admonition reject. But Jesus was a divisive man. He divided the scribes and Pharisees. It says there was a division among them because of him. So that means in the New King James, you're told to reject Jesus. It says, a divisive man after the first and second admonition reject. So that's just ridiculous. Luke, but he, knowing their thoughts, said unto them, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and a house divided against a house falleth. Why don't these guys, for the sake of unity, just go back to the King James, the way it was? Because they're like, no, we want our new Bibles. We want hundreds of Bibles. We're happy with that. And it's like, well, but you're doing that at the destruction of unity. So they're the ones who are causing the disunity. When Westcott and Hort came along with their Unitarian dudes, and they're promoting all these disgusting, horrible, blasphemous readings, they're the ones who started this type of division, and it's just been going on and getting worse since then. So every house divided against itself is brought to desolation. So that's why we are going, well, we all want to speak the same thing. We don't want to be divided, because a house divided, and Mark Ward's like, it's just a cancer. Yeah, it's a cancer to him, because he's saying you can read the King James and you can have the NIV and you can have this and that. And he's just seeing this massive division. Where, see, I don't have that type of double-mindedness. I'm singly focused on the Word of God. I know that there is only one Word of God. There's not multiple Christianities. There's not multiple editions of the Trinity, and we just chose one. There's not multiple editions of the Bible. There's one Bible. In Jude, very interesting verse. It says, these are murmurers, complainers, walking after their own lusts, and their mouth speaketh great swelling words, having men's person in admiration because of advantage. But, beloved, remember the words which were spoken before of the apostles of our Lord Jesus Christ, how that he told you that there should be mockers in the last time, who should walk after their own ungodly lusts. These be they who separate themselves, sensual, not having the Spirit. So we've, in the area of bibliology, there's been huge unity in the Protestant church around the King James Version, there might be all different, Presbyterians and blah, 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 all different types of groups, Baptists and cults, but there has been a unity in the Word of God, but now there's not. Bibliology is being attacked, and there's as many different opinions on what the Bible is as there is on, eschatology. And so, but that wasn't always the case. And so it was only really people who were doubtful of the Word of God. They were coming in attacking the Textus Receptus, coming in attacking the King James. And oftentimes when you look at their argumentation in hindsight, there was really no substance to what they were saying. And so, but oftentimes people who are in their era, they're swayed by these words. But many times these words, now we look back and we can evaluate them in a different light, and we're like, oh, actually what they were saying was a really bad argument that got disproven, and so yeah, in Ephesians, endeavoring to keep the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. There's one body, one Spirit, even as you are called in one hope of your calling, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and one Father of all, who is above all and through all and in you all. Wouldn't it conclude that there's one Bible? I mean, it's just so silly. But usually what they do is they conflate different things. They're like, the King James, you can't read it anymore. It's old. So you have to grab an NIV with all these deletions in it. It's like, no, you conflated two things there. If the NIV was just an update of archaic terminology, great. But it's not, is it? It's based upon a different Greek text. And so these guys deceptively conflate these two issues. And Mark Ward does it all the time, unfortunately. There's so many verses that I could just go through and just sort of rebuke, what's happening. But I think I'll just jump out of there because I want to rewind that. Let's just have a look at what Mark Ward said.
I have come to feel that King James onlyism, however, is a cancer. And there is nothing, in my experience, like the discord among true conservative Christians who believe the Bible, believe the gospel. There's nothing like the discord that I've seen over the King James.
It's just amazing. And so, when I go through this, he's very hostile. I mean, I could make my own video just on this one, but it gets to the point where it's like, do I have to go through absolutely everything that Mark Ward says? But I probably will, but not tonight, because it just shows you the ignorance of Mark Ward, but also the ignorance of the people on the show, because they're usually saying, Mark, you're so humble, you're so nice, you can tell that your spirit's good. And they're not really just evaluating him on what he's saying. They're evaluating him on, just his demeanor. They're not critiquing what he's saying. I mean, I beg people to critique what I'm saying, match it up with the Word of God. If what I'm saying is false, I'll publicly repent. If you tell me, hey, Nick, what you're saying here is factually wrong, you shouldn't be saying this, you should be saying that. And if I look into it and go, well, you got a point, I'll put my hand up and say, hey, I'll do a whole video on it. But these guys are not, they're just soaking in what Mark Ward's saying. They're not going, is what Mark Ward's saying actually true? Because they already have a bias that they, James White's come along with his book, which is basically, he should have entitled this book, Gail Riplinger and Peter Ruckman Suck. That's what the book should be called. But he's like, let's just say everyone's like those guys at the same time. So we'll expose them and we'll say, hey, do you really want to be in a group with those guys in it? And so the whole King James only concept is just a scarecrow term to get you away from truth. And if you aren't a critical text advocate, you are thrown into the King James only camp, whether you want it or not, and you have to wear the hat and the T-shirt, Ripplinger, and and you're like, who are these people? But you're in that camp, and then they can point out some weird stuff about them, and it's like, oh, I didn't know I believe that. My group believes that. No. You're not in a group. You're an individual. You're a free thinker. You don't have to be pigeonholed by these people. Mark Ward calling you a Ruckmanite, James White saying you're a cultist, and all this sort of stuff. It's ridiculous, and so you don't have to listen to what these guys have to say. So anyway, I thought I'd point out the dangers of King James onlyism video that Mark Ward has done recently. So I will just get up the latest James White video. So James White usually doesn't talk much about the King James and TR much anymore, but when he does, everyone seems to know about it. So, okay, so he's got, whoops, that's the wrong video. Yeah, we'll go to videos. Yeah. And so I'm actually going to make a meme of this because it's so funny. Like, I was thinking about it today because I went through the whole thing today, and what James White was saying, he was going through a Jonathan Burris video, okay, where there's some King James guys and they're talking about numerology. Now, I've always said I don't believe in the numerology that's around the King James movement, and most people don't adhere to that. Like, I know Will Kinney seems to pull up a number here and there and go, well, this word appears 77 times, and he seems to think that that's, God. And I'm like, well, okay, well, I don't see these numbers meaning anything to me. The number system that means something to me is like the 70th week of Daniel prophecy, that type of thing. It's like, that to me is amazing, and that's Bible prophecy and all the rest of it. So basically, there's hardly anyone who believes in this numerology stuff, but there are people out there who do. I'm not saying that they are non-existent. But so what James White does, as per usual, his book that should just say Ripplinger and Ruckman suck eggs, he's got like everyone who's not a critical text person is all under an umbrella, and they're all part of the Ruckmanite camp or whatever. So what he does in this video, he goes, well, King James only people are so weird and so strange anyway. Now they're coming up with these concepts of numerology, so we're, Jeff Riddle, and because he labels all them, King James TR people. They're all, everyone's thrown into the King James only camp. So he's sort of like, well, hey, Jeff Riddle, you're in this camp too. These are your guys. Like, imagine if I did that with Calvinism and just said, well, the West Barra Baptist Church, they're Calvinists. The God hates fags. Hey, James White, why are you in a group that pickets funerals, that type of thing? But I wouldn't do that because I'm a Christian, and I don't lie and slander people like James White does. So he's a liar and he is a slanderer. So he's gotten Jonathan Burris's thing, and they're talking about this numerology stuff in the Bible. Now, I actually wrote on Twitter. Now, I actually crack myself up sometimes. Sometimes I do say some things that are pretty funny. AO Min. Let's go there. Alpha and Omega Ministries. Okay. So I'll throw that there. This is my Twitter. I hardly ever really go to Twitter. I do put these videos on Twitter because it gives me an option in StreamYard. So it has here a bunch of other stuff I didn't get to, but did manage to look at an excellent example of how KJV onlyism destroys real confidence in the Bible by looking at an example provided by Jonathan Burris here. So let's look at that. And so I've got my reply here. I'm like, you exposed weird numerology, but then showed some textual science CBGM voodoo stuff. And so, in other words, he's like, oh, these King James guys are so weird, and they got these numerology stuff, and 1611 is Leviticus 1611, and blah, 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 And this is the same stuff that Nathan Cravat he debated a guy who believed this type of thing. And I'm just there going, this is just dumb. Like, debate me. Hey, I'll debate you. I will debate anyone in the world on this topic. But it's actually hard to find people who would debate me. I'm got a debate lined up with James Snap Jr. He'll debate me on the Textus, and we're doing it on like minority readings in the Textus Receptus, like the hardest thing that we can debate on, straight away. And it's like, I'll debate people on whatever they want to debate on this issue, King James issue. But and so I just pointed out that he's talking about all these, this numerology stuff, but then later on he talks about the CBGM, and he's talking about all these weird numbers and things like that. And even Peter Gurry's basically said that a lot of the dating is just an art form. But what was really interesting in one of the articles of Taylor de Soto, he pointed out that the clean transmission between Vaticanus and P75, when they say, oh, well, there's this link between them, the cutting off percentage is like 78%. And when you look at how much Vaticanus and P75 are related, it's 79%. And so it's just 1% above the cutoff point. And they're like, it's a clean transmission. It's just like they got the same root text and all this. It's like, man, there's 20% difference between these manuscripts. And so that it's just near the cutoff point. 21%. But if it's 22%, it's a cutoff. And so I thought that was really interesting. And I've been sharing that article around for quite a long time now, since he wrote it. And so, here's James White. He's gone from one, weird numerology thing and jumped over to the critical text guy's weird numerology thing. And, the CBGM, like, listen to this. Listen to how silly it is. James White, when he was doing his program about me on Revelation 16:5, he said that he no longer goes with the NA28 reading. Okay. Now, thanks to TurretinFan showed me in a video back in 2013. He sort of admitted it, not like, okay, this is something big or whatever. It was just in a few words in passing. He's like, I don't go with those readings, sort of thing. But I thought that he only admitted it in 2017 or whenever he did that video. But he had admitted it like in 2013 that he doesn't go with conjectural imitations. So he's basically saying, I don't go with what the CBGM reading is in 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 10. But then in this video, he's going with all these CBGM computer readouts that basically, are supposedly helping people to have this genealogical lineage in these manuscripts. And he rejects in the NA28. He goes to the Tinderhouse text there. He rejects that reading because he says it's a conjectural imitation. And so why would you put your faith and trust in the CBGM if it's spitting out the wrong answer? I mean, if you were making, if you had AI helping you with robotics and they were making car parts and it didn't fit, the windscreen didn't fit, it was wrong. You're like, hang on, something's wrong here. It's not perfect, and you had to make an announcement. We've got a problem. Why would you just continue to go to that flawed technology, especially when it comes to the words of God? I mean, this is important. And James White's rejected a reading that is in the common text. Most other people have followed suit and reject that reading, but then they're promoting the CBGM as the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I just can't understand why. But I'm not saying don't use computers, don't use AI, don't use anything. I mean, that's fine to do that in your studies. But these guys are trying to find out what the Word of God is. CBGM's given them this wrong answer. Their scholars have put it in the text James White has to disagree with their scholars, but then he's agreeing with their technology, the CBGM technology. And so the coherence-based genealogical method. Anyway, I thought that was quite funny, and I'm going to make a meme on it where I've got, James White, coming against the voodoo of, coming against King James onlyist numerology. But then it's like, I'll probably have someone with some chickens or something, and CBGM down the bottom, and then maybe 2 Peter 3:10, and voodoo, the voodoo science, and maybe a few quotes from Peter Curry or whatever. Some other people involved where they're just saying it's sort of like an art form, all this dating, methodology, and maybe even the quote or the article to Taylor DeSoto or from Taylor DeSoto. That'll be a good link to have there. Anyway, I thought that was quite funny. And also because Jonathan Burris had put this there, I'll just shut that off. I think he actually quotes Jonathan Burris. Yeah, here we are. So I said on his one, you exposed weird numerology, but then James White shows you textual science, CBGM voodoo, and you accepted it. And there was another thing that was said. I might actually go to Burris's page. Actually, doesn't look like it's there. It looks like it is in here somewhere. No, or basically, he put, there's no problem with the text or something like that. I see no problem, and I basically, oh yeah, here we go, more replies. That's what I'm not seeing. He might have deleted it. On this channel, I'm actually blocked by James White, but I'm not blocked by AOMN, which is weird. So yeah, anyway, I don't think we're going to get anywhere looking at that. So, but I might just quickly show you this is where I got the video from on Twitter, the sneak peek ECM Revelation. So these guys have a few, interesting, good articles. Obviously, they're on the critical text side, but this is where I got the video of Metzger. And sometimes they're looking at just these manuscripts. Some of these are very interesting to look at and to think about. And so anyway, I just sort of throw that up there. So yeah, this is James White's Greek New Testament manuscript age and text type. So he's going through all this, which is an art form, and that's his numerology, but he doesn't use the majority text at all. He rejects all that, and he just goes with Vaticanus and Sinaiticus anyway. Like the last 12 verses of Mark prove that. So Pastor Brett says the CBGM is a nerd nest full of weird birds. Yeah, it's I like what Taylor said. He just said it's like an old, computer game sort of thing. He said once people know about it and they get the head around it, there's really nothing to it. And you get this picture that they're making out like it's like AI is involved and all this sort of stuff, and it's not really that at all. So, oh yeah, new revelation by Nick Sayers, 5 watching. There we go. It says 7 watching. I think, yeah, it says 4 watching on YouTube and 3 watching on Twitter. So that's interesting. Pastor Brett says, James always conveniently blocks those who offer a challenge to his theology. Yeah, and that's what I found. I was putting stuff on Twitter, tagging him, and he did a whole dividing line program, an hour-long program on me and my tweets, and then blocked me. Because after that, I would tag him in things saying, well, what do you think about this, James? But I wasn't being like a pest. It was just like, because I actually wanted his feedback. I wanted him to critique what I was saying. But yeah, he just blocked me. Yeah, and that's what I find with a lot of these people. Mark Ward's blocked me on Facebook. A few other guys have blocked me around the place. And so, okay, so we'll jump out of that. So this is the ECM that we're looking at. So here are the books. So you can get this. Let's just, whoops, I've zoomed way too far in. How do I get that off? There we go. The ECM number 6. So let's throw this into English. Revelation, complete volume. New Testament of the Greeks, Major Critics Edition. And so that's €329. Okay. And $30 shipping. So you're looking at €360 to buy that. It's a big volume. I mean, it's huge. German Bible Society has published it. So yeah, very interesting. So that's that's available soon. I'll just get rid of that. I was going through the revised version Wikipedia page, and it was interesting. This guy, George Washington Moon, came up, and he has a book about the revised version, and he's looking at the English and saying that the English is not good. So he has the reviser's English, a series of criticisms showing the reviser's violation of the laws of, I think it's the laws of grammar. Let's go to the beginning of it. Violation of the laws of language. Bad grammar is an injustice to truth. Okay. So yeah, they're talking about their English language. So obviously the King James was, a lot of these words were changed. So yeah, he has an index at the beginning, so you can look at some of these words that were changed. So that's quite interesting. So I'm just looking for something that catches my eye. Yeah, very interesting. Will, the verb, wilt, willest, would. I wonder if it has, shall and will. That would be interesting to read. 43 and 44, 59. So 43, 44. One of you shall betray me. Because what's happened with shall and will, they seem to have actually become the opposite meaning. Like shall used to be something that was definite. You shall betray me. It's not like you will, you, as in you could, one of you could betray me or might betray me. It's you shall, which meant it was definitely going to happen. Where we tend to use the word will for that in modern vernacular. So we say, one of you will betray me. Where when there was like a human choice, shall seems to be like, not like you will see the Son of Man coming, sort of thing. That's definite. But when it's like, choosing two options, you shall choose which path to go. It's like it seems to be the opposite of what it was in 1611. So it's quite an interesting concept to think about. I did quite a lot of study into that to examine the differences in the New King James and other TR Bibles. And so I'm just thinking of an example. Just trying to think of an example. Maybe Revelation 22. No, that's whosoever wills. It's a different. I'm just thinking of will versus. I can't think of one at the moment, so I don't want to waste you guys' time. Or actually, let's look at the verse that's mentioned here. 26:21. Okay, Matthew 26:21. Okay. Matthew 26. Ooh, a little bit of a typo in the heading there. Matthew 26. (21) says, truly I say to you that one of you will betray me. So the King James says, verily, verily I say unto you that one of you shall betray me. So it's been an interesting way of looking at things, and even the word shalt in Revelation 16:5, which art and wast and shalt be, which in the 2023, I'll just quickly read that. 18:16. Who is and who was and who will be. So interesting. He debated Steve Tassi, but he rejects you. Can you send the link to his program mentioning you? Yeah, I think I can just look it up. It was like James White. Bible College. James White Bible College. Ehrman. It was a while ago. Maybe I'll just type in Revelation 16:5. I'll just show you what I'm looking at here. So a lot of these are just myself. Yeah. Okay, so this was the original one where he talks about me for about half an hour. And so that was quite a long time. That was like 2050. But that's not the one. Okay. And it mightn't be labeled under Revelation 16:5 either. But I have done quite a lot of videos about that. And so if you did want to watch that, if you actually go to YouTube, Oops. Oh, this is someone's channel called YouTube. Oh, that's because I'm on videos instead of here. Okay, all sorts of stuff. Now, if I go to my channel, actually, it's going to take a while to find this. I'll just see if I can. Videos. Yeah, it would have been in videos. So I used to just do videos and upload them. Okay. Yes. So here's the first. My first reaction to James White is here. So if you go through the beginning of that, it should show you. And so he did a dividing line on in a Bible college setting.
Versions, the 5 that he did between 1516 and 1535.
And so the whole program was about Revelation 16:5 and me, basically. So A. Hannah says, did he actually say your name? Or just a TR guy, lowercase TR, no doubt. Yeah, it was just some guy on the internet. Desperately. These people are so desperate. They're desperate, just would say this type of thing over and over when he's doing it on tweets that I did, and Twitter only gives you like a certain amount of space. So I'd write stuff out and half of it I couldn't fit in. So I had to, do it in 2 things, and I'd put a photo there, and I did quite a lot of work on it anyway. But I'd seen James White personally and gave him my book, and he refused to take it, and then announced on the dividing line that he's never going to read it, and that I was desperate and just a weirdo. And it's like, oh, okay, that's a weird response. And so, so I sent you my email if you need more time to find it. Yeah, it might take a while, but that's anyway, I'm thinking that you guys can see that. Here's the response video. So it's this one here. Alpha and Omega. Imagine we came across an early manuscript copy of the
translational differences, but the point is all the manuscripts that are cited by the Messianic text say Hagios, holy one.
Okay. So I'll pull that down, unless it's got James White's thing here. Nope. Let's shut that one down. Now, yeah, so I thought this would be an interesting one, the Reviser's English. So, yeah, really interesting to see, what they've said. And obviously this is, 130 or 140 years ago now. I think this is 130 years. I think it's like 10 years after the edition. But 1882, there we go. So it is 140 years, even more. So it's quite a long time ago. So some of the things that he's saying could have changed. So you just, but I just thought it was interesting that here was another book that people could look at about the revised version. So I might throw that in the mix. And I might even just grab the Textus Receptus Academy up there and put that in the mix on the TR Academy. So I'll just do that. And okay, I can shut both of them down. Well, actually, I'll show you who this guy is. His name's George Washington Moon. And so his book, The Reviser's English, a series of criticisms showing the reviser's violation of the laws of language. So it's interesting. Here it has Ecclesiastical English, a series of criticisms showing Old Testament revisers' violation of the laws of language, illustrated by more than 1,000 quotations, being part 2 of the reviser's English. That's huge. That's a lot. So I'm guessing this is way bigger than his first edition, 1886. So I guess the Old Testament's come out, and I'm not sure how many pages this has. 213. Okay, very interesting. Maybe he's got a table of contents here. I'll just get a bit bigger. Old Testament revisers. And so I noticed he had this in his first edition too, because I saw the oh no, that's the Old Testament revisers. Okay. Wordsworth, right? Yeah, that's interesting to know as well, because oftentimes we're only looking at the New Testament. Yeah, who's involved here? Okay. Very interesting. R and B. Yeah, so for some people that would be interesting too. So I might throw that in the mix on the TR site, so I can have a good look at that later. Okay, I'll shut these down. But yeah, the more I read this guy's stuff, the better it got. A series of criticisms on the English of Dean Alford and others on the language, the Dean's English. Okay. Anyway, I'll shut that down and oh yeah, great. He's got like a whole bunch of headings. I wonder what he says at Exodus chapter 3. No, the I am passage. Doesn't look like it's changed there. Well, then he's got some New Testament issues that sort of crop up in the Old. But Proverbs is a big problem with even like the New King James, Jeremiah. Okay, anyway, I'm sort of doing my own little study here on the side. Pastor Brett says that's James for you. Yep. Revelation 16:5 is just another text variant that never gains any attention without Codex Sinaiticus. Yeah. Yeah, it's clearly got the name of Jehovah there in Revelation 16:5, so that's why it says holy. This is something that they don't want to admit. Like I think I'm the first one to point that out in this generation. It was quite well known to the generation around Beza and the King James translators. James White had no idea about it. Most people had no idea about it. And so now that's being brought to the fore. People have just straight away got an answer for it. It's like, no, you know, this reason, that reason. And so anyway, I better post that. And I will shut down my Facebook so I'm not beeping all over the place. A. Hannah says, has there been any criticisms on the AV English and any laws violated from it? Anybody? I doubt it. The AV English, it probably cleaned up the English language, if anything, and unified it. for the next, so many 400 years, to the point where it was our main Bible in Australia for 100 years. It was the only one that we're actually able to use here. In Protestant churches, we had to use a King James. You couldn't use anything else. So we were a King James only country. Our laws are based on King James. If you ask anyone who is like a constitutional lawyer here in Australia, they don't go by the newer Bibles. They go by the King James, because all our laws are based. Like if you go through our law books, it'll point to Leviticus and point to other places in the Bible. That's the foundation of our law system here. And so most English-speaking societies are like that. Pastor Brett said, "Thank you, Nick. Time to get going. Have a blessed evening, my brother." Yeah, thanks, Pastor Brett. Thanks for dropping in. A. Hannah says, "I just didn't know if anyone has a comeback after the fact and wrote some criticism. I would think it would be the standard." I think it was Hugh Broughton who was a critic of the King James. But he was sort of like he was a bit like a guy trying to put in Young's literal translation type of stuff into the Bible, and also trying to make out that the name should be like, instead of Jesus, it should be Yehoshua or something. I'm only just saying that it mightn't be that particular issue, but it's a roundabout, like a ballpark sort of critique. And so, yeah, A. Hannah says he was a stern literalist. But the interesting thing is, like, someone was pointing out, like, he was a big critic of the King James and all the rest of it. So I looked at some of his translation and compared it with the King James, like in Hebrews, and the vast majority of it was exactly the same. And then just a weird, curveball every now and then. It was like, oh, that's weird. But most of it was the same. So it wasn't like he had this huge complaint. It was just on a few little things here and there. So he had some personal issues. Yeah. And it seems like that's who they were talking about, because he was trying to get Queen Elizabeth to make a new translation. And, he had his own individual sort of thing that really no one followed. I guess it's a bit like SoCal Preston with the whole Apocrypha thing. It's like, he wants to debate everyone, but at the end of the day, it's sort of like, who else believes this but him, and Catholics, So, yeah, so I was looking at the revised version. That was interesting to see that. There was another critic, but yeah, it didn't seem, I couldn't see in any of his books where he had written about it, but perhaps he did, and I just overlooked it. Maybe I'll open his page up again. Maybe he wrote articles rather than books, but maybe I should type in Bible. No. French literature. Okay, so he's written quite a lot on, Elizabethan and Jacobean pamphlets, this type of thing. So a specialist in the English language, but it does seem like around that time, 1882, yeah, perhaps he's written of it just in one of his books. And so I couldn't really find it in there, just having a cursory look. Shakespeare and the Grand Style, English versification. Anyway, I'll jump out of that one. I will jump out of that as well. Now, I just wanted to show you these guys here. So I listened to this whole program today. Understanding Bible Inspiration, Manuscripts and Translations, Day by Day podcast. Now, they're building up to do a King James only episode. Now, I just sort of show you where they talk about Jeremiah. Okay, so let's listen to what they have to say.
In the book of Matthew, Matthew quotes, this is Matthew 27, verse 9. It says, "Then was fulfilled that which was spoken by Jeremy," I'm reading from King James Version, which we know is Jeremiah, the prophet, saying, "They took 30 pieces of silver, the price of him that was valued, whom they of the children of Israel did value." So it's quoting, Matthew's quoting Jeremiah the prophet, but Jeremiah the prophet didn't say
that specific text.
He's not the one who said that text. It was actually verse 13, 12 and 13, which this is mentioned.
And so I was waiting for them to go, but this is sorted out because underneath the Jeremiah, the larger prophet, sometimes they put some of these smaller prophets underneath them. And so you would have the Jeremiah scroll, and at the end of the scroll would have these smaller minor prophets. I was waiting for them to talk about that. And they sort of alluded to it, but I think there was actually an accident that they alluded to it. But I'll just keep going.
So some people look at that and they say, see right there, the Bible's not infallible. The Bible has flaws. You can't trust it. Man wrote it, and they'll make this big elaborate list and all these.
And I'm there thinking, yeah, and you can tidy that up. I'm waiting for them to do that.
Reasons, but the thought was still communicated that this was spoken by a prophet.
Right.
You're seeing
the humanity. You're seeing the humanity come out.
Right.
So they're saying the Bible has errors in it, and that's just the humanity of Matthew. So basically, they've adopted the whole Bruce Metzger thing that the originals have mistakes in them.
Just be like us. I believe that when we pray before every one of our podcasts. God, lead us through this. Holy Spirit, lead us through this. Right. So in this case, but it hasn't been perfect because we're not perfect. Sometimes I misspoke. Like earlier, Brandon was bringing to my attention. I said earlier, I said tomorrow we're going to talk about this tomorrow. We're not doing a podcast tomorrow. We're doing one next week. But I mean, again, we may record this tomorrow, which you won't know until later on. But this will be posted next week. But again, that's the little inconsistencies or imperfections that comes from humanity, but the very thoughts and the conversation, I believe, has been very much inspired by God.
We've been preaching before, and I'm sure we've.
Okay. So Hannah says it's very robot-y. Okay, so this is on high definition for some reason. Yeah, I think it was because I was looking at all these pictures. So I'll put it on like half that res. We don't really need it on high res with these guys. And that should help.
We've all made this mistake. And I don't know any minister that hasn't made any mistake saying something backwards. Like I was listening to Doug Batchelor not too long ago.
It might be on fast. No, they just talk fast.
He was talking about how, when you preach on Elijah and Elisha, you get those two mixed up. Sometimes.
I do Moses and Noah all the time, every single time.
I have been preaching before, and I've been talking about how you need to come to the Lord and be saved, and I'm talking about Jesus, and I'm talking about this great controversy between him and Satan, and I get the two mixed up. Not in my mind, but my mind is my mind's in fifth gear, or no, I'm sorry, my mind is in you could say it's in a gear. I don't know what gear it's in.
Your brain is in second gear, but your mouth is in
fifth gear. You could say that, and my mouth is and I'm just getting the stuff out there. Before I know it, Anna will tell me, "Yeah, you called Jesus Satan."
And so they're still trying to basically excuse the mistake that Matthew made about Jeremiah.
And I'm like, what? Like, that's not. And she said, yeah, no, everyone smiled. They knew what you meant. They knew that's not what you meant. And I'm like, oh my goodness, bro.
I'm doing the same thing, bro.
And I just want to tell the audio video crew, take that tape
and burn it. Delete it. Burn it. Delete Control, Alt, delete.
You just, you didn't mean that. You just, our humanity comes out. And I think with Matthew, this is a perfect example. He was a man of God. He obviously was totally moved by his relationship to Jesus and what he's seen. And he, and if you think about it, back then, they didn't have the Bible in the fullness that we have today. They had to go to the synagogue, or they had to go to the actual synagogue and have the scrolls rolled out and read it there and try to memorize it.
Right.
And so that's where I thought, well, he's going to talk about Jeremiah, the Jeremiah scroll. And at the end of the Jeremiah scroll, here it is, this minor prophet. But they're not. They're just saying there's mistakes.
They didn't get
Yeah.
to take all that stuff with them, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think that understanding all of that is significant too. So yeah, how many times have I tried to quote this? I quoted it here, and it wasn't Paul; it was Peter that said that. You know,
Yeah.
it's the idea is not. It doesn't matter who said it. The thought was still true. The thought was still.
It's basically they were saying, thought for thought is fine. There are Bibles out there that are thought for thought. Sometimes God says things and you can use synonyms. So it's just a thought that counts, And so that's what they're trying to say. Matthew just made a mistake. He sort of really, didn't mean to say Jeremiah. He just meant one of the prophets, but
Communicated.
Amen.
So man, thank you so much, bro.
Let's get some final thoughts because we don't want to wear out the
so
saints of the Most High.
I'll just let this play while I'm looking at the KJV Today article.
So as we think about all of that, as we think about how God inspired the Bible, that it is a combination of the divine truth of God communicated in the finite language of men, that God chose to preserve his word through many manuscripts from different people in different places. And there, in those transcribing and copying it down, there were some minor differences. When we think about how a language actually works, that one language doesn't perfectly map onto another one, when we look at all of those realities, I think it becomes very clear that the Bible could not be given in a verbal dictation, mechanically that way. That's not the evidence that we see. But what we see is that despite the human, it doesn't mar the divine, and the divine doesn't mar the human. That these two things come perfectly, they blend together so beautifully.
Amen.
And we can, when we read the New Testament, Old Testament as well, but we're talking about the New specifically here. When we read the New Testament, we can know that what I'm reading here in John 17 is what John wrote.
That's right. Amen.
We have the proof is overwhelming if we're going to be honest and look at the evidence. And you can have your preferred translation. We all do. Everybody has their favorite ones. But at the end of the day, we need to remember their translations, and we can benefit from comparing translations, using different ones, and bringing all of those thoughts together.
Amen. Absolutely. Jordan, you have been a tremendous blessing, brother.
Yeah, man.
I can
Appreciate
tell
you, brother.
God has given you, you've put a lot of time and effort in studying this, and I appreciate it, because this is the kind of stuff that if we don't have a clear or proper understanding of this, it can lead us to very erroneously make conclusions elsewhere about things that we study or that we read that we don't fully understand.
100%.
Because
what happens is at the end of this program, so it's like another couple of minutes, they start talking about, well, we're going to talk about the King James, and sometimes people will hold their peace all the way through, and then right at the end sort of let their hair down and tell you what their real thoughts are. And so I sort of found it quite strange that they went through the Jeremiah thing and basically said it's a mistake in the original, but then they're going to do an episode on the King James soon. So, and they do the full Southern accent, and it is quite strange, like being a foreigner. Their Southern accent to me sounds like the accent of colored, Afro-Americans, So it's almost like they're sort of degrading them in a way, like they sound like, hallelujah, we got the Bible, and not like when I'm doing that, I sound like a white guy, but these guys sound like a black guy. And I was just like, are they just sort of saying that these guys are sort of lowbrow simpletons from the South? And anyway, that's just something that came across my mind. I'm sure these guys would say, no, there's plenty of white people who sound like that, but just coming from a foreigner's point of view, it does seem like everyone, mocks people from the South for having a King James. But let's just continue. We'll get to the end of this, and then I'll talk about the KJV Today article.
You don't understand inspiration.
Yeah.
And so I respect you the highest for taking the time and the effort to study this.
Yeah.
Well, most study all. I'm not saying you don't intricately study Bible topics and things.
Okay, so I've just made it bigger. I don't know why, like, even just making that bigger, I might just shut a bunch of stuff down. Where are we? Okay, so I've still got that New King James video up, so I might just I'll just copy that into there, and I'll look at that later. So A. Hennis says, circa laughing out loud. A. Hennis, say not equal to as written or read in, etc. Yes, very good. It's very robot-y. Yeah, thanks for that feedback. These guys are the future of Christianity. Yeah, unfortunately, people can have a Bart Ehrman, Bruce Mesker type of understanding of the text, and that's orthodox nowadays. You need to have that, so you're not in a cult of the King James only. Calvin Clemens says, I wish I'd known you're on earlier, just arrived. These men are ignorant of manuscript evidence. Yeah, sometimes because it's 11 o'clock at night here in Australia, I do things at night when I've got spare time. And so sometimes people are only just getting up. I don't even know what time it is in the United States there, but I think it's pretty early. But I haven't done a full video on this. So with my videos, you can always just rewind it and listen to it on 1.5 or something like that. You'll get through it a lot quicker. A. Hannah says, if they have that take on Jeremy the prophet, they're going to knock it out of the park with a special KJV episode. Yeah. And so that they're basically saying all the Bibles are wrong, like Matthew's wrong. The Bible has error in it. And it's just strange. These guys are obviously influenced by Bart Ehrman type of thinking, or just Bruce Mesker. So if you follow James White, you'll go, oh, I'll read Bruce Mesker, and you read it and you come to these silly conclusions.
Just obviously you do, but sometimes we all have our emphasis, our area of emphasis. And I appreciate that you have taken the time to allow God to lead you through this to help us better understand it. And we hope you at home have been tremendously blessed by our conversation tonight. Dakota, what's your final thoughts, man, as we get
My final thoughts is, look, I don't care what y'all say. King James Version is the only version in the whole world every Christian should be using. Okay?
King
James. So for those of you guys that are tuning into this episode, watch this episode, let's just be clear. Next week's episode, you don't want to miss. Right here. There we go. All right. Next week's episode, you don't want to miss, because I'll be missing what camera to look at right now. Anyways.
That's right.
So no, you don't want to miss next week's episode. We are going to, it's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. But you've probably run across some people who are very adamantly for only one specific Bible translation. If you didn't catch the hint, the King James onlyism.
KJV.
So we're going to, we've set this stage. I think we've done a really good job talking about all that we can and what time we have. So because of that, what we're going to do next week, you want to tune in. You want to tune in, because what we're going to do is we're going to look at some of these rebuttals for someone who might say what I just said in a playful way. They might say King James Version is the only holy Bible that there is. All the other Bibles are unholy Bibles, and those are the Bible.
And so some of his argumentation at the beginning was the usual, well, if you just got the King James, what about people who read foreign language Bibles? And it's like, well, I think I only know, like Sam Gipp said, that you have to learn English to get the real Bible. And I think Matthew Verscher, Bible Protector, has made claims that there's going to be a revival of the language of English, sort of thing. And but apart from that, it's sort of like, and even him, I've questioned him on that, and he sort of said, no, I don't mean this and that. It wasn't as strict as the Gipp thing. But it's like, it's very rare that someone would say that. But these guys are like, that's why you need Bible translation, because, what a foreigner's going to do, sort of thing. It's like, well, they'll have a Textus Receptus Masoretic Text Bible that will equal the King James. You know what I mean? There's plenty. I mean, I've got them here. There's the Russian Synodal Bible. Apparently, there's 117 differences between the King James and that one. We've got the Ukrainian Bible there. We have Yeah, a whole bunch of. I've got the King James New Pillar Testament in Papua New Guinea and Pigeon there. Yeah, most people go, yeah, there's a foreign Bible for Spanish speaking people. I mean, people like D.A. Waite who get slandered, as just King James only in this book. He's been instrumental behind the Spanish Bible and supported that all the way through. And many of these people have supported, Korean Bibles and many other Bibles. I've worked on Urdu Bible, Khmer Bible, and so, yeah, but I can understand some people just are ignorant of the whole situation. But they go through the usual thing about readability and all that sort of stuff, which is what they do is they conflate things. So they get readability and the whole textual issue. So they say they just avoid the textual issue like Mike Ward does and say, if you can't read the thing, you won't ever understand that. And so you get an NIV. But then with the NIV, you're looking at multiple verses missing. You're looking at, the last 12 verses of Mark, the pericope adulterae being, basically regulated to these footnotes will just say that it shouldn't be in there. And the Comiohanium deleted and all this type of stuff, and many, many changes and half verses deleted. And so you got a different Bible. You got a different foundation there. So they're just trying to make out that it's just something more readable. And why are these King James people not just going with something more readable? What idiots, And it's like, no, that's not the case. It's a different. They've snuck in never seen before Greek manuscript or a Greek text underneath their English Bible in Westcott and Hort's days that a Unitarian worked on as well, like a Jehovah's Witness type of guy. And many heretical people have worked on this text, and it's gone through to the NA28 today. And we just think it's got 2,900 less Greek words. It's got 8,000 changes. We don't want that. We want all the words there. And so, but they just conflate these issues because they're being taught to. Modern day apologists are taught by James White and Mark Ward and anyone else who knows a thing or two about the critical text. They're taught to basically deceive people about this issue and to make out, we've got all these manuscripts nowadays, mountains and mountains of manuscripts. And it's like, yeah, but they only use Vaticanus and Sinaiticus. The vast majority of the time, that's what they're using. And so, but, now they're sort of like, we can't get caught with our pants down. And so they've got, a few other scrape together a few other readings from here and there. And it's like, see, we're not just going to Vaticanus and Sinaiticus. Okay, last 12 verses of Mark. Every Greek manuscript has it. 1,654 manuscripts have the last 12 verses of Mark. Vaticanus and Sinaiticus don't. 2 manuscripts, but they double bracket it in the NA28. Basically, double brackets means it's certainly not the text. So you got 99.99999% of the manuscripts have it. And so that just proves to you that they're still just going with Vaticanus and Sinaiticus. They're not really interested in the majority. They're not really interested in this embarrassment of riches. That's just all an apologetic to get you to go to them. And then at the end of the day, they just say, look, just follow Vaticanus and Sinaiticus. Just follow Westcott and Hort. That's pretty much what they're doing. Calvin Clemens says, as you and Wilkini have said many times, anyone who believes there are errors in the AV make themselves their own authority in all matter of faith and practice. Yeah, it's unfortunate. And it's, the authorized version is the first time that all the words of God have been put and compiled into one place in a book form, where before that it was in book forms and manuscripts, and then before printing it was just in manuscripts. Okay, so it just took a little while for the technology to get to the point where it's like, okay, we've got all the words now. So Beza's is very close, minus about 20 words. Scrivener's is Beza's text with those 20 words sort of put back in. But yeah, at the end of the day, so we have had the Word of God. It just took a little while to iron a few little things out till we got every word in 1611 put in the right place. But yeah, someone who believes that there are errors, like these guys believe there's errors in the originals. So that's, yeah, how can you, what can you do with that? Like I used to think that if you showed people where there was a translational error, they would go, oh no, my ESV's got an error in there. I better go with the King James, or I better go with the better reading. But they don't. They just go, yeah, there's errors in the originals. and it just does my head in, you know. So A. Hannah says, they have fallen into the modernist trap, as you cannot have something perfect and infallible. They believe they would get laughed at if they take a stance on an absolute standard, so they act like they do. Yeah, they've been trained that, you know, King James only is something to completely avoid, you know, and, you know, I wouldn't want people to go to Ruckman or Ripplinger and all the rest of it, because there's a kooky element. But what's been one of the most successful slander campaigns is this book. You know, people like Mark Ward, they just label everyone in that camp as the same. It's like saying all Calvinists or Westboro Baptists. No, they're not. They're not picketing funerals and saying God hates fags, and that's slander to say that. So I'm a Christian. I would never say that. If I was in a debate or whatever, I wouldn't say that. But unfortunately, there are toxic Christians out there, James White and Mark Ward, passive-aggressive people who just make up stuff, call people like me and Jeff Riddle and many others Ruckmanites, which is, you know, and then he cries, oh, victim, you know, he's just there, you know, crying, oh, they call me mean names on YouTube and I can't repeat these things, you know. So, well, mate, join the club. How many things have I been called? And how many times has Mark Ward personally just said that anyone who, you know, is in this TR movement, King James movement, they're, you know, most of the time they're just sort of, he makes out that we're almost like illiterate bozos with, you know, his whole concept of us being like the parents in the Matilda story. And he's the school teacher trying to help Matilda to get an education, and we're drunken parents who don't care about education and all this sort of stuff. It's a slander, but that's what they do, and so that's what I see. And that, you know, Mark Ward wonders why, you know, we make videos about him and stuff. It's because we're warning people that these guys are slanderers. Bible Highlighter said James White believes the thing called the Bible is the many existing manuscripts of the original languages, yet James White believes that the Byzantine manuscripts support him. Well, he rejects the Byzantine. He goes with the Alexandrian text. And so the vast majority of manuscripts out there, over 5,000 manuscripts, are Byzantine. There's only about 50 that would fall into the category that he would use, and really most of the time they're going with Vaticanus and Sinaiticus. These other 50 are just usually, if they just so happen to have a similar word or something like that, they might grab it and say, oh, there we go, it's got the same word. But Bible Highlighter says James White does not believe a translation can be the Bible. Yeah, absolutely. And that's where we believe that things that say the same thing, things that are equal to themselves or equal to them other are equal to themselves. If something is said in Greek and it says exactly the same thing in English or the same thing in Latin, well, they're akin to each other. Now, everyone in this movement does go to the Greek, but we do understand that in the English language, it's sufficient for us for everything that we need. Now, if you want to go to the Greek and find out that something's a dative or, you know, aorist, or most of the time this comes across in translation anyway. And so, Bible highlighter, there are people who do their own homework and are not being realistic how God would operate according to his word. Yeah, I encourage everyone to do their own homework. But yeah, when you look at what God says and who God is, God can't lie. God is perfect. So what he creates is going to be perfect. And so that comes down to your theology and what you believe God is, and can God make something that's perfect? I mean, look at Jesus. Jesus was sinless. He was perfect. He has never sinned. And so the things that God makes, like we are sinful, and we usually project onto God our fallen nature. And that's what, a lot of cults do that. They make Jesus out to be a sinner. A lot of these Bibles do that. They say that Jesus, you shouldn't get angry. You're in danger of the judgment. And then, Jesus gets angry, he's a sinner. He says he's not going up to the feast yet, but they take out yet, and it says he's not going up to the feast, which was a violation of the Jewish practices of the day. And also he's just lying. I've had atheists say, well, Jesus lied. It's fine. It's fine for Jesus to lie. And I'm like, what Bible are you reading? And then you find out they're reading critical text. And Bible highlighter said, those who do not do their homework. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So talking about these type of guys. And these guys, unfortunately, if you only just do your homework, and you look at the critical text, you'll get all this mess. But they are looking into the King James only, but usually it's what's been said about people who are labeled King James only. So it's sort of like going to Joe Biden and saying, teach me about Republicans. So he's going to give his own bias slant and everything. You're like, I know everything about Republicans. I'm going to do a show on it. And it's like, you don't know anything. You know a bias. And the same with the Republicans. If I said, tell me about Joe Biden, they'd give me, but it will probably be a little bit more true. But Calvin Clemens says, question, do you believe the Roman Catholics, Jesuits are behind the Oxford movement and the creation or start of modern versions? I think definitely there is influence. I don't think the Roman Catholics just dropped their Counter-Reformation when, Westcott and Horder on the scene and all the rest of it. I don't think that they just dropped their Counter-Reformation. I think that the Jesuits are a very dangerous group, and historically they were well known to be a horrible aberration, that they were murderers. They would, the Jesuit oath, which is in the Library of Congress after Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, that was put into the Library of Congress. So you can read the Jesuit oath that they took. Whether that's the same oath that they take today, we're not sure. My uncle was a Jesuit. He's passed away now. I haven't really looked much into modern Jesuits and what they believe. It seems like modern Jesuits are just completely liberal, rather than, being the radical, but when you look at the First Council of Trent, obviously they were way more radical with the Spanish Inquisitions and things like that. Now they're just like, it's like the Mormons. They've changed so much that you can't even recognize what they are. And I think that's gone through every rank of Catholicism, where now they're sort of like this toothless tiger. They're not going out and burning people and, inquisitions and all that sort of stuff. But I do believe they are still just as deceptive. And I think the whole concept of text criticism, Priestley was probably one of the main driving forces behind modern day textual criticism, and several Roman Catholics, basically the same type of argumentation against the reformers has been constantly parroted throughout the years. Then it just gets to the stage where it might be Unitarians or whatever, jumping in bed with the Protestants, but as long as you're just causing division. So this is like the ecumenical movement, like the Promise Keepers. They don't care if it's Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses joining with Protestants. This type of ecumenical thing just seems to be, it's just a poison that's spread through the church. The ecumenical, charismatic movement. They believe in miracles and healing and tongues and all this sort of thing, and so they can just join in. And, they're doing the same thing, but they've got a statue of Mary, and that's fine, sort of thing. There's just so much compromise, but oftentimes you find the Roman Catholics behind a lot of this compromise, and so I think the Roman Catholic Church needs to be exposed. People need to tell others about the Roman Catholic Church and how dangerous it is. The Pope is an antichrist. People who are in the Roman Catholic Church, if they are following the teachings of Rome, they are going to hell. Now, there would be some ignorant people who are just in the mountain areas of Honduras somewhere, and they're just putting their faith in God, and they're just trying, and God does overlook ignorance, but a lot of these people know better, and they know what they're doing is idolatry. They know that the Bible speaks about these things, but they're in a club, and so some people they know exactly all the teachings of Rome. They believe you're saved by works. They believe you're saved by being part of that group. And so, hopefully that answers your question. And I do believe that they are a major part behind the versions. The Second Council of Trent talks about that they're going to have part in Bible translation work. And so we see that with Carlo Martini being a major part of that. Eugene Nida teaching all the Jesuits how to translate the Bible properly. So they've all sort of intermingled with each other. And the fact that most of these guys visit the Pope at some stage and pay him homage, it just seems so bizarre and strange that they would do that, being representatives of the Protestants. But they're sort of like all the Protestant era is gone, But according to them, it has, because they're just deeply compromised and they've got demons. But according to me, the Protestant Reformation is still in full swing. I'm in complete agreement with those who say the Roman Catholic Church is a cult and you need to be born again. You need to stay away from that type of rubbish. So Charita KJV, H here again. Good morning. Hey, H. I did catch your name last time, but like a goldfish, I swam around the bowl and I've forgotten my own name half the time. Calvin said, good morning. Bible Highlighter says, one source states Dr. White argues dismissing this extensive manuscript evidence would mean we can know nothing about antiquity at all from historical documents. Yeah. But at the end of the day, the vast majority of manuscripts that they've found since 1611 back up the King James. And so even the Dead Sea Scrolls sort of show that it's not the Temple Scroll, but it is a very similar type of scroll, but it has errors in it. But it proves that what the Masoretes had done was it's been faithfully transmitted throughout time. Bible Highlighter says a YouTube video called The Reliability of New Testament Manuscripts, James White. Okay, thanks for that. I wonder which tons of manuscripts he's referring to. Well, see, they look at like Sinaiticus and the papyri. It's just like, that's gold to them. But to us, it's sort of like, well, the papyri could be anything. It could be just sermon notes. Could be, quotes from Marcion, from his Bible. You know, we don't know. Some of these are as big as a postage stamp. And, you know, they're changing words in the ECM according to some of these. And so we don't know what they are. Was that used by the church in that era? Like I said, sometimes it's just Codex Alexandrinus. They'll change their reading in Revelation chapter 5, just due to that one manuscript. You know, it overrides absolutely everything else that they got on the planet. And, you know, if you've got a good reason for that, yeah, but they don't really have a good reason for that. It could be a smokescreen statement. Yeah. Hudson says, do these guys thank God for the errors in their Bible? Could you imagine them teaching this to a church congregation? Yeah, imagine like, hey, everyone, let's change to Matthew 27. We just want to thank God that, you know, we have this error. See, it doesn't matter if you're reading NIV, ESV, or whatever. They have that reading there. And it's a mistake, apparently, and it's in the originals. And Matthew just stuffed up. But this is what Bruce Metzger says in Matthew 1, where it has the wrong names in the genealogy. Oh, well, Matthew, he made that error. So H says, God bless all my fellow saved saints in the chat. Bible Highlighter says, as for textual criticism, J.G. Eichhorn is credited with coining the term textual criticism in 1787. Okay, that's good to know. Bible Highlighter said David Cloud talks about Eichhorn and how he came up with lower and higher textual criticism. Both are rooted in unbelief. Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, I do like David Cloud's material on this. And Matt Singleton has brought up that he wants to talk about the differences between lower and higher text criticism. So it might even lead back to that type of thing. Derek McClure says Protestants come from how the Reformers protested, and I will always protest the Pope and the Catholic Church. Yeah. So, and I understand the word Protestant was sort of like a political type of thing in the beginning, but it has just become a label. I know some people reject it, and I don't want to pigeonhole people as a Protestant. I just say that I'm a Christian, and that it didn't start from Luther. I mean, Luther just said he was a Hussite, which was 100 years before. Jan Hus was a disciple of Wycliffe. There were many Christians. Just because you had an umbrella religion over all of Europe called Roman Catholicism didn't mean that there weren't pockets of Christianity in places. And a lot of the time, too, you look at Wycliffe, they're digging up his body and burning the bones. I mean, they're trying to get rid of the evidence that these people actually existed. A lot of the heresy trials are just people who've read the Bible for themselves, and they're like, hang on, we don't need a pope. Oh, well, better get your kids together and all your books in your house and everything you've ever owned, touched, or whatever, we're going to burn it to the ground. And that's what the Inquisition did. Read the Fox's Book of Martyrs. And so anyway, I'll finish what these guys have to say. We've got about a minute left.
Bible should all be consigned to the trash heap, right? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to answer some of these rebuttals that some of these folks from the King James Onlyism group have. And we're not going to do it in a rude way. Obviously, we're going to do it in a very loving way, and we're going to make it clear how we should think through some of these things and answering these questions that a lot of people bring up. So you definitely don't want to miss next week. But meanwhile, what should all y'all do right now?
What you need to do? I need you all to go down to the bottom of this screen and hit that subscribe button and go ahead and bump us on up to 1,000 subscribers.
Bro, you turn red in the face over here.
Give us that like button.
Man.
Put us a comment. Give us your thoughts on what we discussed tonight.
Do you agree, disagree? Do you think we're crazy? Do you think we're apostate? That's okay. Let us know in the comment section.
That's right.
Let us
That's
know.
right. We have fun here, Jordan. Love you, my brother.
Love you guys.
We'll
too.
see you right back here next week. Also,
right.
see you guys right back here next week as we are learning all to grow in Jesus Christ. How often, Dakota?
Day by day.
God bless.
And so I'll probably put this link to this video in their chat. But I just want to get this up first. So did Jeremiah speak the prophecy at Matthew 27:9-10? So I'll just enlarge in this so we can all read along. Then was fulfilled which was spoken by Jeremy the prophet, saying, and they took the 30 pieces of silver, the price of him that was valued. And so at the end of the day, just to cut it short, what A. Hannah said in the chat, where it says that which was spoken by Jeremy the prophet. And so this is something that is in Jeremiah, but critics say that this prophecy was not by Jeremiah, but by Zechariah. Okay. And so, but the thing is, with the way that you look at Hebrew scrolls, usually you have a major prophet and the minor prophets are just attached to that scroll. So you'd have the scroll of Jeremiah the prophet. So you wouldn't have all these little scrolls of minor prophets. You would have them on the back of others. And so there's 22 books of the Old Testament, where we have 39, but they're all the same books, but it's just in a different catalog system. So in the scroll of Jeremiah, you would go through and you would see the prophecy of Zechariah, and it's in there. So that's what happened here. And so a lot of people agree with that. I just remembered that I have gone through this same article before. Now, the guy from KJV today does have a different spin on it. If you want to read that, you can go to his site. I'm pretty sure it's Will Kinney who talks about the one that I've just mentioned. But, and, you know, just showing also as well that people are doing their own homework, which is great. I always encourage that. And sometimes we will be in, you know, slight disagreement with each other or whatever. But the vast majority of the time, I'm in agreement with the KJV Today website. But, yeah, so anyway, I think that's about all I've got to say. So what I'll do, I will actually put this in the chat. Let's go to YouTube here. You've got to press pause. I will actually put this in. Press pause, and then the pause button moves over, so you're pressing the next video. It's like, don't know. I guess they're getting so many clicks by doing that on YouTube. But so in their chat here, yeah, I just said you guys are basically saying God inspired error in Matthew 27. Shocking. Okay. Actually, I might put a new comment. Maybe I should edit that and just say, I made a video at the end. Critiquing your work. Some of these don't have any type of spelling check, so Google is the best one for it. No, looks fine. Save. Okay, get rid of that. Okay, we got that. Let's get rid of that. Calvin says, it really is sad how the protests against Rome and its heresies have declined since the advent of modern translations. Yeah, and oftentimes they'll make the ESV, you know, with Apocrypha, Catholic Study Bible, Verbum, you know, who are the equivalent to Logos, Faith Life, they'll bring out a whole bunch of Catholic stuff. So, you're thinking that you're going to go with Logos Bible software. And you think, oh, it's a bunch of Protestant guys, and so you jump on there. But even so, if you type in like Pope in Logos, Pope Benedict III, let's look at his stuff. Catholic products. Pope John Paul II and Benedict. Collected works of Pope John Paul VI. Just all this Catholic stuff. It's like, why have they got all this Catholic stuff there? And that's just on Logos. So that shows you how compromised they are. But if you go to Faith Life here, basically this is who Mark Ward works for. Verbum, like as Logos, Proclaim, Lexham Press, and Verbum. What's Verbum? Well, Verbum just outright are a Catholic branch. So this is the other, Verbum meaning Logos, meaning word. This is to do with the Roman. Take your Catholic study to the next level. So this is who Mark Ward is working for Faith Life. Now, apparently he's working for Crossway now. And so I guess let's have a look at it. Crossway. Maybe I'll type in Pope here and just see what comes up. Don't know about that one. A soul in paraphrase. Don't know why that came up with Pope. Anyway, that's different. Books. Authors. Maybe Crossway are actually, half Protestant, but, who knows? Half the time. Like, I have no idea about them. I don't want to just demonize them, but, what sort of Bibles have they got? Let's have a look. Text study. Oh, it's ESV, I guess. So that's what they're going to be pushing. Maybe Apocrypha. No results for Apocrypha in all products. Maybe Catholic? Let's have a look. Roman Catholic Theology and Practice. I wonder if that's exposing. Okay, he's an evangelical theologian. I mean, perhaps these guys are okay, but I'm not sure why aren't they selling the ESV? Let's type in ESV with Apocrypha. Or maybe Catholic edition. Or actually had ESV Catholic Bible there. Catholic edition. ESV Bible Catholic edition. The most beautiful and readable Catholic translation of the Bible. Okay. Just shows you the difference between the NA Reader's Edition. So that's the one Jennifer Knust worked on. Isn't that amazing? So I wonder, it's Augustine Institute. What is the Catholic edition? I wonder if Crossway are involved with this. Maybe type in Crossway. I don't know who publishes the ESV. Maybe it is these guys. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it does say that. Crossway, okay. So here we go. Therefore, when the publisher of the ESV, Crossway Books, chose hang on, why is it shutting me? Yeah, there we go. The Augustine Institute to be the executive Catholic producer of the ESV. So basically, they've just given this to the Augustine publishers, but they're making a Catholic Bible. And so this is who Mark Ward's working for now, which is quite amazing. 2001 ESV translation effort was headed up by the Translation Oversight Committee, brought together by Crossway Books. Okay, the Mounts guys are there. ESV was originally translated by a team of evangelical scholars under the auspices of Crossway Books, a Protestant publisher. It was, however, adapted by Catholic scholars and only then approved by the Roman Catholic Church in India in 2018 as the ESV Catholic edition. In this way, the ESV is much like the RSV before it. The RSV was originally released in 1952 as a Protestant translation, only later became approved by the Catholic bishops. Okay, so they've accepted it. Both the RSV and the ESV are valuable ecumenical efforts that allow Protestants and Catholics to read Scripture together. Yay. Logos, ecumenicism, ecumenism at its best. Yes. Bible Highlighter says it is highly suspicious that the very teachings of the Bible concerning the Word of God are changed in modern Bibles. Yes, things about the preservation of God's Word and God keeping His Word and all that, it's usually completely changed or it's explained away. Such verses as Psalm 12, all of those, yes, they're all changed. Many times they're changed. For example, God magnifies His word above His own name, but this is changed in modern Bibles. Yeah, I mean, my understanding is the word there would be Christ, but it is important, and these things cause massive problems. So yeah, they've got the Vatican on board. Okay, does it have the deuterocanonical books? So someone's translated those. Wonder if the Catholics did it. So anyway, I think I'm going to shut this down and I'm going to head off. So, but thanks for joining us, guys. Even though it was a little bit sort of all over the place, I think we need to say some things. I was triggered anyway. So this is the one of the New King James that held came on board.
KJV Pictures recently produced a very well-made video on why the King James Version is the only legitimate English translation of the
Okay.
in comparison to the NKJV when it comes to a Hebrew term where the best Hebrew scholars are uncertain as to the meaning of the word because it only appears a couple of times in the Bible.
Okay, so that looks like something I'm going to have to listen to later. Calvin says that was right after the Second Vatican Council. Yes. Titus says Ward says he's getting tired of doing the KJV refutation stuff. Yeah, because I mean, if I was just constantly coming against, say, preterism, there would be people there who are toxic jerks, just like there are toxic jerks who believe in the pre-trib rapture, which I follow. But I don't have to be affiliated with them in that. I just go, oh, okay, they're an aberration. But apparently we have to be affiliated with every sort of weird person with the King James issue. In Young Earth creationism, I don't follow personality, I just follow truth. And so there are a few, weird personalities who say things and I'm like, okay, well, how many wives has this guy had or whatever? And it's like, but at the end of the day, I just follow the truth of it. And so I don't have to be affiliated with anyone. And I wouldn't say that, hey, Mark Ward, you're a Kent Hovineite, because Kent Hovine believes the same Young Earth creationism. But apparently if we have the same bibliology, we're all in the same camp, which is a genetic fallacy. And so, but this is what these guys deal with. That the first modus operandi is to slander their opposition and to discredit them. And so that's what they've done. And they've been quite successful at it. A lot of people just go, oh, read James White's book. You don't want to be one of those horrible King James guys like Ruckman and Ripplinger. And it's like, why do you have to have anything to do with those people? And so we need to not be afraid of these guys and their slanders, and we need to expose them for what they're doing. So anyway, guys, I better go because it's nearly midnight here. I'm getting a bit tired. So thanks, guys, for all your chat. It's been great, and we'll see you next time.